Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to be back with you. A week away from college basketball. That's exciting news. So we continue to make progress on a daily basis. Think we're getting better, but we're going to be tested. This is probably the toughest schedule that we've played in my 20 years here. Obviously, UCLA, Arizona State both picked 1 and 2 in the Pac-12. UC Irvine picked 1 in the Big West. St. Mary's and BYU picked 2 and 3 in the WCC, and the list goes on. And then we play a team that's picked in the top half of the Mountain West early. Second week of the season, we get Colorado State twice at home. So we're going to be challenged right away, and I told the team that we have to be at our best early in the season. And we have a veteran team, and that should be within our capabilities. But time will tell, and we're excited to get tested here in a week against UCLA.
Coach, just talk about what your thoughts are on the conference schedule, the way the pairings worked out, the altitude, the bunching of the games. It seems like a lot of the tough games are early, easier ones maybe later. But what are your just general thoughts on that?
I think the Mountain West did a good job trying to look at what they felt were the top teams in the league and make sure none of those top teams had to go all those hard games on the road. We go to UNLV and Utah State. Boise has to come to us, and I think a Colorado State team, and they kind of divide them up as best they could. So I think the Mountain West did the best with what they had to work with in COVID, and I don't know if anybody feels slighted. We certainly don't. I think the schedule's fair and balanced, and we look forward to playing it.
Also comment on DeMarshe Johnson, what you saw in him, and whether you expect to take any other freshmen or sign any other freshmen in the early signing period.
DeMarshe's a dynamic athlete. He's got length and athleticism that Aztec fans are accustomed to seeing on the floor. He's young senior, so he's got age on his side. So many of these seniors now are holdbacks and double holdbacks, and so even though you get a freshman, some of them are 20 years old. DeMarshe's young. His best basketball is ahead of him, and we look forward to developing him and making him into a special Aztec down the line.
Do you expect to sign anybody else?
Probably not in this early period, Mark. No, we will continue to evaluate players. Obviously, the transfer market has been good to us over the years, and so we'll continue to mix good high school players with transfers and try to put the best Aztec team we can on the floor every year.
Hey, Dutch, is it a relief just to have this out there? I mean, we know it's been a challenge for everybody. What's it like for you? I'm sure you've had an idea of how this is all going to come together, but to now see it on paper and to know what's ahead of you, what is that like at this stage?
Well, it's good to see it on paper. I don't know if it's comforting to have it on paper. It's a pretty challenging schedule. So that's what we promised these kids when we recruit them, that we're going to play the best teams we can play every year. And I think we've accomplished that this year. It's just disappointing that the Aztec fans aren't going to be in Viejas to enjoy those games because that's such a big part to what we do as a program. Our home winning percentage goes hand in hand with the attendance we've had over these years. Sellout crowds, tough environment for the road team. And so we're going to see if we can play well at Viejas minus all those great Aztec fans.
What do you think about having a preseason number 1 versus number 2 as your last series kind of right before the conference tournament?
What were you saying? Preseason?
With Boise, 2 of the top teams, in the preseason, facing that late in the season right before you get into the conference tournament.
Yeah, I think the conference, if they had the rankings and they think the rankings are right, you're playing arguably the first and second pick teams on the last weekend of the season. So I think if it rarely leads up to what it's supposed to be. But if it does, it could be like New Mexico, San Diego State all those years ago, last game of the season, conference title on the line. And so I hope that happens. I hope we're in a position where we're playing for a Mountain West title against Boise the last weekend of the season.
And on a different note, with Nathan coming back this season, I was wondering if you could just kind of give us a picture of you know, how worrisome that situation was last year, and now the relief of having him be able to return this year after all that he went through the last couple months of last season.
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing to all of us is Nathan's health. And so we wanted to be extremely cautious with him, make sure that the doctors did their evaluation, made their recommendations. And with that done, it's great having Nathan back on the floor. And our scrimmage last Saturday, I saw something out of Nathan I hadn't seen yet, which he stepped out of the offense and played his game within it. So what I'm saying, most guys go A to B to C, and they do a good job of that. Nathan went A to C finally. He saw opportunities to attack that we didn't draw up for him. He made those plays, and if he continues to do that, he's going to have a great junior season.
Hi, Coach. A couple questions for you. First of all, in the past, you've had closed-door scrimmages or even exhibition games. Do you get anything like that, or do you just open up first time on the floor as a team in uniform against UCLA?
Well, the in-uniform part I'm going to change. We're scrimmaging inter-squad again, obviously, this week, and I want to put them in uniforms. I want a pregame routine where they warm up all in the same uniform like it's a game, so they get that rhythm of a game feel. Obviously, then we'll put half the team in white and half in black, and we'll scrimmage. But I want as close to a game feel as we can get, which means putting your uniform on before that first game. So you get a feel what that is. You look at it, you get a feel for it, and you get used to that routine. So we're going to scrimmage in uniforms this weekend to try to give us more of a game feel, even though we don't have the opportunity to do it against someone else.
Was there ever any talk about, like maybe with USD or UCSD, somebody in town of trying to do that just to get an opponent, or was that not even an option because of COVID?
Obviously, we've played both teams in the regular season, but we can't scrimmage them. NCAA gives you no scrimmages this year. They give you 27 total games, and so the only way we could have played them is if they were on the regular season schedule. With COVID, you never know what could happen. If we get a game or two canceled, maybe we'll look up and be playing one of those local teams if they get a game canceled. So I think that we talked about this a week ago. You have to be flexible in everything you're doing. So even though they're not on the schedule, there's always a chance somewhere over the course of the season we could play one of them if we both get games canceled.
Coach, I know it's a different sport, but obviously college football has had games postponed, canceled across the country. Do you use that for your players and say, hey, listen, if we don't do the right things, this could be us really quickly, and we could lose a lot in a hurry?
I talked to him about that last week, about we're within 14 days of our first game. If we have a couple guys test positive, we're going to lose games. So I know you've been careful and been cautious with who you're associating with, how you're living your life. Stay within our pod, Aztec Basketball, and continue to do that. Sometimes when you're quarantined as long as we've been, we see the numbers going up because people get fatigued with quarantine, with living like that. And I've just tried to tell the team we have too much at stake, too much basketball to play to run any kind of risk. So with that being said, I know they're young men, and I try to just deliver that message daily, and hopefully they will live by that message, and we can avoid coming down with a case or two of COVID at this time.
And finally, Coach, I don't know if you've set your starting lineup or if you have a good idea of where it is, but do you envision Trey Pulliam being in that starting lineup?
Yeah, I think Trey's competed hard all fall, and I think he'll have an opportunity to get that starting spot, although you have to produce every day in practice and every scrimmage. So I'll have a better idea after Saturday who's putting up the kind of numbers and doing the kind of things that I think will win us a basketball game. We all know that the lineups can change. And no better example than a year ago when Matt Mitchell, a 2-year starter, because of injury, came off the bench the first 13 games. Then Nathan went down and Matt stepped back into his starting role. So I don't think I want my team too comfortable thinking that if they don't produce on a daily or weekly basis, they're going to be assured a starting spot. That's something we earn every day in our program, and we will continue to do that.
Hey, Dutch. What role does Adam Seiko fill for the Aztecs this year, and what's kind of a next level for him this season?
Adam fills the role of making the head coach comfortable. I can put him in there, and I know what I'm going to get out of Adam. He's been in the program 4 years, even though he's a junior. He guards at an elite level. He makes open jump shots. But like all our players, he wants to continue to grow his game. So he's been better off the dribble this year, getting into the paint, finding his teammates. And so he grows his game. But Adam can win games for us at the defensive end. And we're a program that's based on defense. So I will go to Adam early and often, and Adam will push some of these guys ahead of him for a starting role. So Adam is high on my plans because of his consistency. He shows me on a daily basis what he's about, and so I take great comfort in that.
What's it say about his makeup? He seems like a guy who's comfortable being a half step out of the spotlight, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, he wants to win beyond anything else, and so if he's that guy off the bench that ignites the team with a three-point shot or great defense like he did our last game of the year at Nevada when he came in and locked up on the defensive end and changed the whole momentum of the game, he's comfortable in that role. But like all players, he would like a chance, I'm sure, getting a shot at that starting lineup. So whether he fights his way into it this year or next year as a senior, Adam is an important piece to what we're doing here and will be all season.
Seems like for a guy who's played fairly consistently, he still seems like a little bit of a mystery to most fans on the roster. I don't think they know a lot about him compared to maybe some of his teammates. What's his personality like? And I don't mean his basketball personality. What's he like off the court?
Adam's got a big personality. I mean, he's well-liked not only by his teammates, but by the people I've seen him interacting with on campus. He's got a big personality. He's a caring person. He's not loud and boisterous like that, but I think he's a trusted friend amongst his teammates and amongst his friends that he has on campus.
Dutch, I saw that you've got 25 games right now. I think the NCAA allows up to 27. So do you plan to add to the 25 regardless of what happens potentially with postponements or cancellations?
Yeah, we're looking at a non-Division I team or two that we can fill in where we think we need game action. So, and also, depending on what happens to some of the teams in the state, UCSD is still trying to find out what they're going to be allowed to do as far as a playing calendar and when they can play. So, being we're dealing with the things we're dealing with, I don't mind leaving a date open and then filling it late. And I think we can always fill with non-Division I teams to kind of fit where I don't want too long a layoff. And I think we will do that and then always hold maybe a game open if all of a sudden we're able to play a UCSD or someone else cancels a game. So we're being flexible with our schedule. We have the meat of the schedule done, but we have some room to add some games as we feel needed.
And then can you discuss that game against St. Mary's that's going to be played at Cal Poly, how that came about, and is that just kind of a one-off for this year against St. Mary's neutral site game?
Yeah, it was a game originally we were probably going to play in Sacramento at the arena there. It's kind of a neutral game. But obviously those pro venues, they know there are no crowds coming, so those kind of went away. And I wasn't, with what we've already got scheduled for the future, I didn't know if I wanted to do a home-and-home with St. Mary's right now with the A-Town Challenge on hold and some things like that. So we decided we would just meet at a neutral site and play one game, and then if we wanted to do something in the future, we discuss it next year. But I didn't want to get tied into a series this year.
Hey, Dutch, on a separate note, with the NBA draft coming tomorrow, I'm curious, have you been able to talk with Malachi at all? And if you have, what's that discussion been like? And secondarily, how exciting and fun is it for you to watch these guys that you've coached and groomed go on to the next level or potentially go on to the next?
I talked to Malachi a week ago. He was still in Vegas training, working out on a daily basis, and I think he was going to try to get home because once this draft happens, these teams are going to be having mini camps, and he's going to be thrown right into it. And so he was doing well. He was happy with the way he was training. He doesn't get ahead of himself. He doesn't read these draft boards and say they're the gospel. I think he's hopeful that a team will take him in the first round. But like I told him, he's going to be on an NBA roster. He's too good not to be. So we're all hoping to see his name called somewhere in the first round. If that doesn't happen, I still have no doubt that he's going to be on an NBA roster this year. He's too good at what he does, which is run a team, play the right way, play with grit and determination, that I just hope he gets on a good team selfishly. You know, you like to see really good players play with other good players. And so hopefully somewhere, you know, later in that first round, there's a good team looking for a point guard, and he ends up being that person.
And how fulfilling is it for you as a coach to see these guys get to the next level, and you know, guys that you've groomed in
Well, I really like it the year before when they help us win games. But then I'm happy for them on a personal level that they can go ahead and make a living playing this game they love. So, you know, I think back to Kawhi Leonard all those years ago when he was drafted, and, you know, everyone talks about the draft. Well, who called you on Kawhi? Well, I know one of the teams that didn't call us were the Spurs, and they ended up with him. So the same thing with Malachi. People ask who's called on Malachi, and, you know, I don't get caught up on that. Everybody's called, either an assistant or myself, but I don't think these NBA teams tip their hands too often. So, and then obviously we had Jalen McDaniels, made it on a roster last year. We've had Malcolm Thomas, Jamal Franklin, Randy Holcomb all have NBA opportunities in their careers. And so it's fun to see players that have come through this program have success at the professional level.
Hey, Dutch, did the league have any dialogue with you about altitude games? The fact that this thing came out and for the toughest trips in altitude are going to be home games instead of the house. Was there any dialogue at all about the formula they used to figure it out?
I don't know the formula, but I'm the squeaky wheel, Lee. I let them know every time I'm on a call that I hate altitude and it's unfair to play back-to-back games at altitude. And so whether that had a lingering effect on them or not, I don't know. So we're playing 3 games at altitude instead of 4 or 5, which I like. And, you know, we're going to, obviously, teams lower in the standings at altitude, Air Force and New Mexico, even though we all know how challenging those games are. We're not going to Colorado State, Utah State, and Boise State, which could have really been tough on us this year because those are teams obviously picked high in the standings. And so I think there's a good balance. We're going to altitude, but the teams we're playing, I think, are fair for us to play at altitude.
Just had a quick question about the NCAA moving entire tournament to Indianapolis. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, I guess I'd have to hear how they're doing it. Are they going to move sites to like Purdue and Indiana and all over the place? You're going to play all over the state of Indiana and then all come to one site? You know, so I don't know what the formula is going to be. You know, obviously, if anything gets relaxed, they're going to want fans in the stands. And so I think the idea of one site is fine for this year. But like they say, the devil's in the details. We'll find out what that's all about as we get closer.
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones on Keyshawn Johnson. Do you expect you have transfers coming in? The mix is a little different. You lost the 3 guys last year. What's your expectation of him playing meaningful minutes this year?
Keyshawn has gotten much, much better. He's so much more comfortable. You know, there's that learning curve that first year where you're just trying to always be in the right spot. Now he's getting to the right spot instinctively. He's making plays from that spot. So I think Keyshawn's minutes are going to increase dramatically this year, and he'll be relied upon to help us win games as a sophomore in this program.
Can you think of an example or anecdote that kind of illustrates his athleticism, especially around the rim?
I mean, he's by far our most athletic player. I mean, he's got great bounce to his game. He can get up and finish around the rim, dunk the ball, dunk the ball. But obviously, part of having athleticism is being able to control it. So I think that's where he's grown his game. He's not out of control. He knows how to play slow to fast. And that pace of that athleticism is the biggest thing that he's improved. Driving onto 2 feet instead of just driving up and jumping up in the air with nowhere to go. So I think he's worked hard. We've worked hard to help him develop that game and harness that athleticism to a point where he can really use it to his advantage and to our advantage.
The best dunk you've seen him pull off?
Well, it's usually, you know, obviously in traffic when you go up and dunk on somebody, that's always the most impressive. So he's had 1 or 2 of those in practice, and so hopefully we get that carryover into game action where they don't think he's going to get up that fast, and all of a sudden he's up above the rim and punching the ball on someone. That's what I'm hoping happens.
Hey, just one more on Malachi Flynn. Did you know his redshirt year, or even early last year, that he had first round potential, and now, I mean, so much with the NBA's fit and style of play. What makes him a good fit for the NBA brand of basketball now that he would be projected that high? Thank you.
I'm always the hardest critic on guys making the NBA. You know, I don't over hype my guys, so I know it's a whole different game up there. But what Malachi has is a swagger about him that when he steps out there, he thinks he's the best player on the floor. And he has a rare ability to be able to score at a high level, but not try to score every time he gets it. And that's what makes him attractive. He knows how to get his teammates involved. He's a great passer. But in a 5-minute stretch, he could put up 12 points in 5 minutes. And so that's what he did with us. He was a great assist player, a great guy running our team. But all of a sudden, he sensed it. The coach didn't have to tell him when to do it. He had a sense when he was needed to score. And so it's those instincts that coaches can't give to players. Usually players have instincts. And he just has instincts how to play the game. And I think those instincts and swagger will transfer to the NBA level.